Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Jewish Divorce Project. I'm your host, Noam Rauscher.
And I'm your host, Leeron.
Join us as we kvetch
and kvel about Judaism and divorce from our perspective as two Jewish professionals and two divorce coaches.
And two Jewish parents with lots of experience and plenty of opinions.
Hello, everyone. It's me, Leeron, your co-host of the Jewish Divorce Project. But today, it is just me. Noam is not feeling well, and it's really weird not having him here. I'm talking to Craig because I feel like I need to be looking at someone and talking to someone. So thank you, Craig.
Always good to have you here.
Noam did the big move. He finally found his place and he's packing. And of course, he's so stressed and tired that he's now not feeling well, which really sucks.
You're going to be fine today.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. So he was like, you could cancel, or why don't you just do it on your own and bring someone in? So that's what we're doing today. And I'm so excited about my friend that I reached out to, which you will meet in a little bit. But yeah, thinking about Noam and just, I really feel for him. And I've been there when you're on your own and you're sick and you have to do everything and no one's there to take care of you. And anyways, Noam, this is for you. We wish you well. And I'm sure everybody who is a single parent can relate, right? So
Absolutely. And knowing him, he's going to do fine.
Yeah.
He probably just counsel himself.
Yeah. Well, you know what? He did good by not pushing himself today and coming in. You know, he did some self-care. He put himself first. He knew that he needed to just take care of himself. So that's really great. I'm really happy about that. Well, I'm trying to think of what's happened this last week because usually Noam has a lot to say. So let me think about this last week. Well, I had my kids this past weekend. Oh, I actually had a really great weekend. My kids were going with their dad to the motocross event, and it was my weekend, but I let them take them for the day, and then it was for the night. So I had this random last-minute time to myself, and I was like, cool, I'll just stay home, I'll work. But then my friend, who is staying in La Quinta, she's like, what are you doing tonight? What are you doing today? Or no, tomorrow. She asked me on Friday. Anyways, I just decided to get in the car. I drove out there. We had a whole spa day. We watched a movie. We woke up in the morning. We went on a hike early, and then I got home to pick up the kids.
And
I felt very accomplished.
You had a nice, relaxing day. The kids were out in motocross and all fired up. When they got home, how the two mixed together? They're fired up, and you were relaxed.
Yeah, I know. I was like, go. You probably miss your devices right now. I need a minute. Let's keep this going. No, it was so good. It was such a great moment. And then this was like the mom moment after motocross. They ended up going to another friend's house and they were watching the game, right?
Good games.
And I was on my way back from La Quinta and I was like, hey, you guys hungry? I show up with In-N-Out for all these guys. The dad was stoked. Like it was a win day.
You can bring that over here anytime you want also.
Okay. Now I know. Well, I'm not going to just rant for no reason. We are going to go out to commercial, and when we come back, we have our special guest, Lauren Conner. The law offices of Alexis M. Langer provide estate planning services, helping California families, business owners, and individuals build a plan that protects them today and preserves their legacy for generations to come. For more information, visit www.alexislangerlaw.com. And we're back from commercial. Thank you. So I'm so excited because I am about to introduce someone I just love dearly. And we met through when I was the preschool director at our synagogue out here in Burbank. And she came in with her family to join the preschool and leave, switch synagogues too, which was a big thing. Maybe that was our hope. We're going to talk about this together. There's a lot of how you got to us. Mm-hmm. But anyways, we met. Lauren, I just want to say hello. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi. Great to be here.
Yeah, we're so happy you're here. So Lauren and I have had so many interesting conversations about divorce as, she's a child of divorce. We were in the same community when I was going through the divorce. So we've been in connection in a lot of different ways as I've become a divorce coach as well. And I'm now running my business through her, and she's helping me with advice in that area because this is what she does. So, Lauren, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi. So I'm Lauren Zaslansky Conner. I am a fractional COO That's a chief operating officer with the To-Go Advisory Group, which is a new role for me. And I help businesses get to the next level. And I take visionaries' ideas and help them put action plans in place.
Which is exactly what I needed.
And that's what I'm working with Leeron on.
Yeah.
Prior to this, I actually ran a virtual funeral and memorial business called Gathering Us. At the same time, I was co-president of Burbank Temple Emanu. So that was where Leeron and I met over 10 years ago. And my 2-year-old that I was looking for preschool at the time is having his bar mitzvah in a few weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm coming full circle.
Yep. Yep. And you were at Micah's bar mitzvah.
Micah's bar mitzvah.
We were at your older son's bar mitzvah.
My older
Yep.
son was a few years ago. So
Yep.
we've been doing that. And so in both of the roles, kind of during COVID, I was doing both the synagogue as well as running a business that was about difficult transitions, right? So people end of life. And so that is very relevant to what all of you are thinking about and going through.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked
Yes.
about that, about the grief and the similarities that go through the grief cycle that people go through divorce. And I think a lot of people don't really get it unless you've either experienced it yourself or if you've seen your parents go through it. I think that's something that I don't have that experience. I coach in a way where it's a lot about my personal experience. But when it comes to that, my parents are still married after 46 years happily. So I have a totally different perspective of seeing my kids where I'm like, I actually reached out to my friends who I knew had divorced parents because I was so worried they were going to get completely screwed up. I didn't know a life for kids with divorced parents, And I remember a couple of friends that were like, I turned out fine. I'm like, can you please talk to them?
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging at every step, right? It's so many things that make it challenging. And I think going into the process, knowing that it impacts your kids in ways that you can't possibly fathom, but also having loving parents in any format is helpful and and necessary.
Well, it's so funny to think back is that I had so many friends who had divorced parents and they were always at my house. It's like I was already taking them in and like helping them then, and it's like all my best friends were like, I mean, I had a friend in elementary school. I can't even believe in 4th grade, she lived pretty far. She would get on her bike and come to our house when her parents would fight. And she'd sleep over and my mom would come in the morning and see her in my bed and just text her mom like she's here and she'd make her lunch and take us to school. Like, yeah, it's
now
crazy.
You can't really do that.
No. Oh my God.
Different times.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me your experience, first of all, in what would you like to share with us? Would you like to share with us about your experience with going through seeing your parents go through a divorce?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a different time, right? And I think, it's been 30 years and it's still fresh on some level, but it's actually not the divorce that's the fresh part, right? It's the sort of the conflict that led to in later times. But it also makes me really aware of having friends who are either going through divorce or thinking about, what their marriage is. And I think everyone struggles in life and partnership, but, when you meet somebody who has, a relationship that might not be giving them all they need, right? And so I'm kind of aware of that. I'm also aware of that people, my parents have become very different people than they were back then. And so, looking at that is like, it might be really rough for a while, but kind of helping people see that there is a way to find yourself in the future.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because, so many people think it's what's best for the kids is to stay together and they stay together until the kids get older. But like, I know there's quite a few kids that are like, I'm happy that divorce was necessary. And I mean, just being able to know that that's okay. And then seeing that. So that gives you that insight when you're talking to your friends.
Yeah. And I mean, in my household, there was not fighting. It literally was like a bomb was dropped. Nobody expected.
Oh, it was. Yeah. Okay.
Most of us in the family.
Oh.
But that said, I see people who have, unhealthy partnerships and, some of them move through it and that's great. And other people really.
Well, it's the
need
ones,
help.
So there's they're calling it the Great Divorce right now. I just heard this whole podcast that Kate Anthony, who was here, she was on Mothering Heights. Do you know that podcast? Oh, it's amazing. It's a wonderful, wonderful podcast. Anyways, she was on there and they were talking about the Great Divorce and that this is now a time where it is just women that have just had it, like just had it. And so to be a friend that's married, whether you're happily married or unhappily married, I mean, I think it's quite very different here in
Mhm.
the way you can support someone. But to have a friend that's now you're seeing them and they're really actively talking about their marriage and that can be draining. It brings up your own stuff, but it's really about women are feeling empowered. I think after the Me Too movement and after we've had so many things where everybody's like, yeah, like it's I don't know. She was talking about how, as a married, Leonora Pitts, who runs the podcast, she was talking about how, as a married friend, sometimes it's like you get a little jealous, or it's like, wait a minute, yeah, my husband does that too. Like,
Right, right.
what the fuck? My husband doesn't do that shit either. Like, it's really
Right.
easy to get into that, right?
Yeah, and I think
I think it's funny.
it's funny because there's sort of like the stereotype of the married person trying to get everyone to get married, or the single person trying to get everyone else to get single. And I think it's important to say, like if somebody's struggling or not struggling, but it's not like you need to get married and then we can hang out again, or dump that guy so we can go out and
Yeah.
get drunk. Like you have to be really
Yeah.
sensitive to that, because I'm also aware of the if you pressure somebody to ditch that guy, 2 minutes later that guy is hearing you. You have to sort of be careful, like to pile on during the fight as well. So I think it's really, as a friend, it's
Yeah.
thinking about supporting, but also letting the person kind of go through their own self-discovery without being super
100%.
pressured.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
why so many women are very secretive about it. Like I know I didn't tell anyone. Like you don't want everyone to know you're so worried about your circle of friends and the community you're in and the synagogue. That's something else that's like we really felt. I mean, when I was going through the divorce, a lot of people didn't know at first. And then once people started to know, and I didn't want anyone to know until the kids knew what was
Yeah.
happening. The minute the kids knew, and they like used their Hebrew school class as like group therapy. Micah went to class and just started pouring out. It was just like, my parents are getting a divorce. And I remember some of the kids were like, no, we need to get them back together. Like they were so like, that's what he came home and he said,
Yeah.
like, oh, he wants us to get back together. Like,
Well,
wants
my
to make
son
a
still
plan.
says it.
And your son.
My son asked, Leeron and her ex-husband, like, as they were splitting, like, I hear you're splitting up, but do you still love each other?
He asked us at the most awkward moment. We both had to be there for like a graduation. It was like somewhere.
It was the band camp thing. Whatever it was.
There
Yeah.
was something. Oh.
Yeah. And so that's also a thing, right?
And Lauren, you came running over behind him. Like,
He does not have a filter. And I think that was such an interesting thing, but he still talks about that.
well, the worst was that Shaw was like, of course. And I was like, no.
So I was like, do you still, when people are splitting up, do you think they still love each other? And I was like, well, maybe they respect each other and they love their children. And I think that's important to note.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is.
No, but I realized in that moment that I had this responsibility where we were the first, which is crazy to me. But in our specific circle, we were the first ones to get a
Yeah.
divorce. And that's so interesting. And I look around and like, we do have a really nice group of married couples. I mean, everybody's has their shit, and I don't know exactly what's going on behind everyone's closed doors. But like, I've always admired your relationship and your
Thank you.
marriage, and you guys seem to be friends and partners in a lot of ways. And a lot of the men in this group are partners.
Mhm.
I mean, there's days that when the women get together, we say otherwise, right? But I started realizing that the comparison was different a little bit in my situation. But it's hard when you are like, when you're going through issues or disappointments or whatever it is that you're feeling, and other people are complaining about their husbands, you start to be like, oh, it's not that bad.
Right.
But when you're with a couples who truly have a good relationship, and there isn't constant fetching and complaining, it's such a lovely. It's such a nice. It's so nice people to be around, and I still want to hang out, but it's hard because it's like. It changes when you're not a couple.
It changes. And I think one of the things that I always remember as a kid, or like when my mom would meet her friends and they would be like, she would be the odd man out. And she always felt like that was, kind of a big sticking point. Oh, when you get a boyfriend, you can come back, come back. Or here's the price per couple. Or everyone's, walking to her car at night by yourself. And so I really think about that as I have friends who are separated or divorced or widowed, thinking about like, they don't have to lose their friendships. And I want to be really, and I'm, sensitive to that because it's
Yeah.
really crappy when you, you go through a divorce and now you're like, I lost my spouse. And now all the people that I want to hang out with are like, oh no, you're a scary lady.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I think if women don't want you around their men, then they must be insecure in their own relationship.
right. And I don't
I'm
know.
not trying
yeah.
to take anyone's
No,
man.
no. But I also think sometimes it is it's a perception of you might not be interested, right? And not you particularly, but just in general, right? It's like there's all these couples. Are they going to feel weird? Maybe I shouldn't invite them. Well, or the blaming, right? They chose to do this, so it's on their own, right? There's always
Yeah.
fun
It's
to
so
do that
sad though,
with women.
because it's like, I haven't changed. I still like hanging out. I'm saying I like the single person. You still want to hang out with your
Yeah.
friends. It means so much to me when like everyone knows we're going to a birthday party or something, and one of the couples, somebody reaches out and is like, "You want to ride?" and like offers to pick me up.
Right.
Like it's like, yeah, they know I'm on my own. Like, why
Right.
would I have to Uber? Like, yeah, get a ride with us, and that just means a lot. And I don't look at it as feeling like a third wheel or I'm, like it feels
Yeah.
nice to feel taken care of, like, and I think people forget, like, I remember I was friends with everyone's husbands just as much as I was with with the women. It's not like I'm like, these are my girls and their
Yes.
husbands. Like, we met as couples. So we're all
Right.
friends.
Exactly.
So it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I just, I think about that, but I see women who are older, who are divorced or widowed, who have the same issue. Like everyone's scared. They don't want, and this, this
Do you
goes,
feel it in a synagogue, like in like groups?
yeah. There's like different group, right? There's sort
Yeah.
of different people. And in terms of, I don't know if it's a direct divide, but I think when you go from one side to the other,
Mm-hmm.
your friends, there's a shift. And then people either don't invite you, or they make it obvious that you're not wanted. And how intentional is that? Or do they really think you're going to steal their husband or not?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting thing to see that, as you go through life, right? Because also anybody who's married could be divorced or widowed in some future state. So this idea that people are like, I don't understand you, and I don't even want to deal with that, right?
I have to say, all my guy friends, all my married guy friends, they just want to hear so badly about my single, just like the women too. But like the men are just like, fuck yeah, tell me who'd you do now? Like everyone wants to live vicariously through the single divorced.
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, I think that single people talk more about those details than most of the married friends I have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do just, but it's similar to when people are widowed and it's like they just feel like they're not invited anymore because I think it opens up insecurities, right? In your own marriage, and oh no, like, I don't want to think that could happen to me, so I don't even want to talk about it. So I see that happening, and I think as people who are still married, right? It's a little onus is on us to say like, don't feel uncomfortable being here by yourself. Like this is
We don't
not,
assume that the other person isn't comfortable. It's just like we're putting, yeah.
Yeah, and we have lots, and again, I have lots of single friends who have
Yeah.
never been married, and and people stay at our house, and I think it's also interesting. You talk about your male friends. I think when you have friends that are other genders, like you have a different perspective of people's lives than if all your friends are the same.
Yeah.
Right. I think you have different ways to connect.
For sure. Yeah. It's I was just thinking about, again, when we were at the temple, when you were the president, like, do you think, I just had something happen today that was really annoying, and it's reminding me of this a little bit. My son's teacher, when she does parent teacher conferences, she sends out the thing and she's like, sign up for a Zoom or in person. Only one appointment per child is allowed, or whatever she writes it. And last time I was like, listen, my ex and I cannot get on the same schedule. Like it's a 15-minute Zoom, like whatever. I was like, we literally are on opposites. Can we do? And she would not let us do it. And so this time around when she sent it, I was like, this is bullshit. Like, so I emailed the principal and I was like, is this a classroom policy, or is this like
Right.
your policy for the school? Because as a divorced family that's co-parenting, this is really not conducive or fair.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
finally, he wants to come. He wants to be involved. He actually wants to go to the conference. Like, and like, why make it difficult? Do you think that at synagogues, or I guess I'm not going to say speak for all
Yeah.
synagogues, but at where you are, do you feel that you can look back and kind of see if there were ways that you've maybe improved or changed or become more sensitive to understanding? I'm sure there's more and more divorced
Right.
families.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I don't know if that there's more now. I think, over time, right, that
Yeah.
generations shift. I think, there's a handful of ways. Also, you were going through this, and it was like pre-COVID. Like there was
Yeah.
so many other things
Yeah.
happening as well. I mean, on
Oh yeah, the synagogue has gone through
but
a
on
lot.
just the whole world, right? But on a basic level, I mean, I think about even just the forms and the communication,
Yeah.
right? It's like, a while ago, it's like parent one, parent two, right? And like, what is like, so if I'm the primary parent, the second, and this is for married people too, I get all the stuff and then I get mad that my husband doesn't answer it and he never got it.
Hmm.
So that's, I see this with bar mitzvah planning, right? It's like everything comes through one parent.
Yeah.
But I do know that, I think there's the like logistics of just paperwork. There's the,
What about like
yeah,
the way you market things, where it's like a couple price for an event, or if it's a like mom's
yeah,
things, dad's things, women, men, family. Like I feel that a lot of synagogues are trying to are doing a much better job when it comes to inclusivity, right? And I
yeah,
remember even when I started there, which was crazy, it wasn't even that long ago, in 2011,
mm-hmm.
like all the forms said mom, dad, mother, father,
Oh, okay.
and we did Mother's Day and we did Father's Day, and like
Right.
it wasn't until we finally had our first same sex family. We never had there
Yeah,
hadn't been until it was crazy. Like,
yeah.
and we changed so much stuff. And then I had the two moms on the board, the two dads on the PTA, and they helped me and we went through the whole thing. And they were the ones that were like, don't stop doing Mother's Day. Like,
Right, right,
we'll bring
right.
a grandma, we'll bring a friend, but like it's everyone's doing it.
Well, and it used to be Mother's Day. Like Mother's Day was during lunch. I don't know if this is
Mothers and
or
muffins,
Mother's Day, but in
daddies
many
and donuts.
schools, it was like dads in the morning
Yeah.
because they go to work and
Yeah.
mom lunch. And
Oh, we
now,
did do that.
yeah, and that think about that.
Yeah.
That's a big deal, right? Like that's you're
Yeah.
making it pretty clear that you don't expect the mom to
So
have
we
to
did.
work.
We started doing like early
Yeah,
morning for the moms.
that was a shift. I mean, I think on the billing or the person of record, we, now we have a new system. We finally got on Shul Cloud system for whatever that's worth. But in terms of,
Should get the sponsor.
one kid with two addresses versus two parents, that's something that we really need to, that we've worked towards when we have a new system. And it's not mother, father. It's
Oh, and
not.
last names, because so many of the moms either didn't change their last
Yeah.
name or then they've changed it back, and that's always complicated too. To like the teachers always have a hard time knowing who's associated.
Oh, so
Sometimes,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sort of looking at that at the back end of like, okay, we have to bill somebody. It's two parents who might not be on the friendliest terms are supposed to pay for this kid's Hebrew school. How does that work? And so we have to, be sensitive to that and then also figure out how to actually, stay in business.
yeah.
So that's one area that I've really seen it. Like we have to think about that. And I guess it's also, when I see B'nai Mitzvah kids, and we have a lot of interfaith couples, and so if those split up, there might be one parent who cares, or one grandparent who's paying for Hebrew school, right? We see that a lot, and it's how do we include the the other parent who might not be Jewish and isn't involved, and now they're not married, and then we have to.
That's the rabbi's responsibility.
Yeah, but it's the whole way through. So we spend a
Yeah.
lot of time in the B'nai Mitzvah process. I tend to meet with both family members and both parents, and just talk about who you want to honor, and this could be a
That's
Jewish
nice that you
family
guys
and
are
not
doing
a
that.
Jewish. This could be a not Jewish person doing this honor, and a Jewish person do honor. And okay, how do you want to lay out? I'm thinking about this now. How do I want to lay out the aliyot so nobody's kicking each other?
So are
when
you
they get
saying
on
this is what
stage?
you guys are doing
I do
there?
a lot of that when I'm doing each B'nai Mitzvah. I have
So what's your
been.
role in the?
What is my role in the B'nai Mitzvah process? It has been almost like a
So synagogues need to
coordinator.
do this. They might not have
Yeah.
this person.
And it's actually a role I've passed some of it on, but some of it I'm still doing.
As a board member.
As a board member and as a volunteer, I will work kind of coordinating the different clergy members as well as the family to say, how do we personalize this service for you?
Wow.
Right? Because each family member, has a different relationship to Judaism. And so I like to have calls with the kid and the parents, both parents, or multiple parents or whoever that is. Um, and to figure out how each person wants to kind of engage in the service and the process,
Yeah.
right? So we sort of meet at the beginning, and then we meet towards, like, I'm at the point where, oh no, I have to do I haven't done my 4-week check-in. But
I
yeah.
wish Noam was here today. Noam, you're going to listen and hear this.
All right.
This is what he wanted. Remember, Craig, he was talking about his process of going through the bar mitzvah with his ex-wife and how it was like they didn't have that person. And I was
Yeah.
saying that's what I was trying to do at my old job, right?
Right.
But I was a hired staff person for that, which is way harder because then you get into piled up and so many other things that's the stuff that I really wanted to do was help the families, right?
It's
And
yeah, and it's
so important.
every
It's so
family's
it
different.
should be someone from the congregation. I think that should be something that's to handle them, to really help them get through the process, not just dealing with the staff and the clergy. And
Yeah, and I mean, I think
sometimes there's misconnection. There's not a good connection there.
right, and just check, being able to check in with people and making sure that, like, everybody is kind of on board. But some people are not, they don't want to be engaged, right? They're not like
They're just like, where do I send my
they're
check?
introverted. They don't want to be there. Yeah, so I think just trying to personalize it because everyone has different issues,
Yeah.
right? And I think about that with, like, my own experience of, like, my own wedding invitation. Everything was controversial. And just really trying to help those families and guide them. And that's kind of separate from the actual, I don't know if it's pastoral care
Yeah.
or, whatever, that actual, like, guiding people and helping them. And I think it's making it welcoming to people.
Mhm.
The welcoming piece is always a struggle, right? I mean, I think, there are fewer, like, the gender specific clubs. Like, how do you get support from women, but don't assume that every woman has a husband to leave her kids with, right?
Mhm.
And so what does that look like when it comes to childcare? What does that look like
Yeah.
to just sort of
Well,
invite them in?
all of this is what is going to support and encourage more single
Right.
household families and single fathers and single mothers to feel
Mhm.
comfortable coming to a
Yeah.
congregation. They need it more than anything. Like they need that community and wherever they find that community. And but to feel truly embraced, and to know that it's not embarrassing or it's not a failure or, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like to kind of normalize it.
And make that a choice that you can make without feeling like you're going to lose all your friends and you're going to lose your community. And
Yeah.
I think one thing that, there's areas that we probably could do better because I think, often when there's a divorce, it's like somebody gets the synagogue in the divorce, right? Somebody gets that community.
Yeah.
We haven't, I'm not sorry, we've never, right? But I can't think of offhand a situation where both exes.
Yeah.
There are some where both people are still involved, and it's hard. That's a kind of a complicated thing, but we try to work through that as well in terms of.
I do have to say, I just thought of something so sad. So because I was an employee at the synagogue, but it was also my community, right? Which tends to happen to a lot of people that work in the Jewish community. You end up having, their kids are there. And this was our group. These were our friends. And of course, and all the teachers are my employees, right? So when his dad would come to pick up, he had all the women like glaring at him. Imagine being glared at by Albert.
And that's really
And he was like, I was just here for Father's Day, like poor guy, and I'd feel so bad for him, and I'd be like, you guys go easy on him. It's okay. It's okay.
God, that's tough.
It was so sad.
That's tough. Yeah, and I think that's not
But like
great.
brave of him, he'd had to walk through.
And that's not good for anyone, right?
No,
Like,
that sucks.
but I know, I know how that works, right? But it's
But like he had to pick up his school. He had to go to his
Yeah.
ex-wife, his wife who's getting a divorce from him for a job and walk through all these women that work for her that hate him just to get his kid from preschool.
Oh man,
That
no,
sucks.
it sucks. And I think
I have a lot. It took me a while to like.
Right.
I have these moments now where I can look back and be like, "Oh, that sucked for him."
Yeah, and it could be much worse, right?
Yeah.
It's because everyone's going to be on the side of the person they know, but I think it's being sensitive about how much information you give the people at work and you give the staff, and how are you sensitive without being super one-sided? And I
Yeah.
think that's really hard. It's hard as a
Oh, I did all the things
divorced
wrong.
person. Oh yeah.
I did all the things wrong. I know now.
Oh, like I vilified every ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
But it's something tricky, and it's also how does it play with the kids? And the kids are curious,
Mhm.
and I think because I have a child who has no filter, he would just jump in and ask, right? But a lot of kids are doing what the adults are doing.
Yeah. Oh,
You
he
know?
would just come up to me and be like, "So how does it feel when the kids go to their dads?" I'm like,
Oh my
"Ugh,
God. But I think on some
thanks, dude. I'm trying to
But he's
forget about it."
because he doesn't think of it with shame, right? And I think that's on some level, right?
We always talk about this. He gave me so many moments where like I really had to like grow in the moment
Oh
because
my God.
if only I could answer him with no filter
Yes.
and
It's
really be like, "Why? How the fuck do you think I feel?"
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like any celebrity, right? Oh, you're going through divorce on the cover of People magazine.
Yeah.
How do you feel? And you're like, why? Why are you asking me
And
this
people say, "Is
question?
this congratulations or I'm sorry?" The weirdest thing when people say that.
Were you close?
Or is this congratulations or I'm sorry? I'm just like,
Yeah.
Is it your business? At
It's
all?
like, it's like when I was pregnant. People are like, was it on purpose? I'm like, really? Really? You're gonna go there now?
It's funny.
Yeah. I had an office full of people who asked me that. I was like, this is really weird.
Well, Lauren,
Yes.
this was so fun.
Cool. Thank you.
I really
love
enjoyed
it.
having you on. This was awesome. And I just want to leave with actually one more thing I wanted to talk
Okay.
about with you. I was about to leave and then I was like, wait. So what would you say would be a good, if you could give like words of wisdom or a tip to women who are married, supporting their friends through divorce? What would you say would be kind of the important things? Not like you're an expert, but you are. You get it. You've seen it from the perspective of your mom. I think that you seeing her feeling like the odd man out at events is a really insightful kind of
Mhm.
thing to see as a child that now as a friend you can understand and have compassion for. So you have a lot of compassion in this sense. What would you say are some things that
Yeah.
someone can maybe utilize and think about when they're helping their friends?
So I think if you go kind of even before somebody's talking about divorce, right? When they're planning their lives, and it's like, oh, my husband's going to work and I'm going to stay home. And I said, okay, that's great. Now, are you going to get life insurance? Are you going to think about how that works, right? Because,
Get them with Alexis for estate planning.
yeah, like what is that? Oh, yeah, great. But thinking about all of those things because, if something happens and, my mom was divorced at about, 40 something. My mother-in-law was widowed at about that same age. Both of my husband and I were like 16 when all this went down. And I think about like anything could happen. So even if everything is wonderful, let's start with like making sure your stuff is in order and you know where to find it, right? I think that's really important,
Best advice.
right?
Yeah.
And then as you're thinking about like, whether it's want to wait till the kids graduate in 10 years or 4 years or 2 years, and then I'll deal with it, or I'm miserable and I don't think I can live with this a little longer. It's trying to put those things in place. So it's, working if you have to, or if you don't have to, if you just want to, right? Because at some point, if no
Start
one's
having your own
around,
life, maybe.
start having your own life, spend time, with your spouse, but also spend time without your spouse. I mean, this is sort of a general thing, but just make sure that you're not putting all your eggs in this one person's basket, especially if you just feel like, they're not trustworthy or they're not responsible or they have an out and I don't. So I think it's looking at that and at what point do they come to a coach and say, what should I be thinking about? And that's really sensitive, right? Because I would imagine many people like don't even want to say the word divorce if they're not ready to pull the trigger, right? Because then you reverse it and you have the fear of like, oh my God, they're going to say something, right? I mean, I literally have experience of saying to somebody dating, what do you think of her? I don't really like her. And then a year later, they're married.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Well,
oh,
that's why it's hard. And there's times where you get to a point with a friend and you can only support them so much and you can't help them make that decision. And that's when you have to say, you should see a divorce coach. And it's almost awkward, like telling your friend, like, you need therapy,
right.
But it's just a matter of like, this is out of my scope.
Exactly. And what do you,
Yeah.
So I would say, okay, is there
Knowing
a
when to
point?
get him help.
Exactly. Hey, I know
Recommend
someone who could
help.
potentially help you think about those things,
Yeah.
right? And as a friend, like I have, the idea of like giving that as a gift to somebody. Like here's one session that you could just talk out with
That's
somebody,
nice.
right?
That's a nice idea.
Website idea. But I think if you helping people sort of see that and also modeling what it is to be on your own, like day to day, as well as like forever, right? There are definitely people who, never have a spouse and are happy as can be, right? And it's not like married people are all happier.
There's one thing that you didn't say. Always bring wine.
Exactly.
Come on.
Yes, you're right.
How many nights did we have with some wine?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want some now.
Thank
Right.
you
Thank
so
you.
much. That was amazing. This was so fun. Thank you for helping me in my first experience of podcasting on my own. We miss you, Noam. We miss
I
you,
know.
but I'm excited for you to watch and listen.
Thank you
All
for
right.
having me. This was terrific.
Yeah.
Really fun.
And tell everybody if they need your services for their business, how can they get in touch with you? Are you on?
I'm on LinkedIn, basically, is probably the best way. Lauren Zaslansky Conner, that's with a Z. And I'm with the To Go Advisory Group. So it's the number 2 GO Advisory Group. You can find us there.
Awesome.
Or find Leeron and she'll find me.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye.
If you're interested in becoming one of our sponsors or have questions and thoughts about the podcast, please email us at thejewishdivorceproject@gmail.com.
And you can always find us on social media at the Jewish Divorce Project on Facebook and Instagram.
And if you'd like to work with me, I specialize in divorce coaching for women. I can be found at mydivorceconcierge.com and on Facebook and Instagram at mydivorceconcierge.
And if you're interested in working with me for divorce coaching or spiritual coaching, I work with people of all kinds, of all backgrounds as well. My email address is noamrauscher@gmail.com. That's NOAMRAUCHER@gmail.com. And you can also find me on Facebook and on Instagram at Noam Rauscher.